Yeah, so hello, welcome everybody. So glad you guys showed up. What we trying to do here is kind of have like a monthly check-in with all of you. I've been doing this for a month now, and I get lots and lots of emails, lots of questions, and I can't respond to everybody. And I just feel like it would be a good opportunity for everyone to have a chance to ask me any questions that you might have, and I can give you a little insight on what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I don't know, just very quickly, if I can does anybody have anything on the top of their head they would like to ask me?
So feel free to raise your virtual hands, or if you guys want to put anything in the chat, you're welcome to do that as well.
Okay, whenever you have it, let me know. I kind of feel like the biggest thing that happened this week for the opinion pages was we wrote our first editorial. We had Representative Gozar put a really disturbing video online. So I saw that, and that was the first time since I've been opinion editor that I just absolutely couldn't let it go. It kind of incensed me. And so I felt like it was a good opportunity for us to write something about it. I'm hoping that as the weeks and months roll on, we're going to start I'll be writing, at least one or two a week. We're starting to get a lot more local opinions in the paper, or relatively speaking. And so I would really like to have the Star's voice and my voice interspersed among those opinions. I know we've had some complaints about, we have a lot of national opinions that we are running. And part of that is just to keep us with the national.
Oh, Curt, I'm so sorry. You got muted.
So yeah, I was just talking about how we run national opinion pieces. So part of that is to keep us looped into the national conversation, and part of it is also we have a lot of space to fill, and we don't get enough local opinions, and I don't write enough to fill in every day's pages. So one of the things I'm going to say every time that we talk is if you have an opinion you want to write, please submit it. If you find yourself talking to somebody and they're like, this should be in the paper, please ask them if they want to submit it to us. I would love to have every day full of local writers. And I would love to have them from Tucson, from Cochise County, from everywhere. So that is the pitch that I'm going to make to you over and over and over again, is please send us your opinions.
We've got Monica in the chat saying she was glad to see the editorial about Gosar because it was abhorrent behavior, really inappropriate topic. Let's see, a really appropriate topic for the Star to speak to. D. Maitland has a question. Are you stopping the once a month requirement? And I guess that could apply for letters or op-eds as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the letters, that can get clogged up. If we have 5 people writing all the time, it's just going to end up the same 5 people. And I think it would be good to keep that requirement. For guest opinions, I would like to cultivate some local writers. If you feel like you want to write guest opinions more than once a month, we can definitely talk about that. Again, I wouldn't want to have it be, I wouldn't want to commit to publishing everything that you send. I don't want to end up in a situation where it's the same voices over and over and over again. But if you feel like you would like to have your opinion out there a lot, and you really want to maybe work on your writing, I would definitely want to talk to you about that. That would be great.
Let's see, Monica, did you have a question? You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up, Curt, on the editorial, because I noticed you signed it at the bottom, and yet it was a Star editorial. It wasn't just your column, which they shouldn't say just your column, but to differentiate it from a column that you might have written. Is that going to be a new practice, that when there's an editorial, it will be signed?
No,
okay.
I think that's a function of it turning around the editorial very, 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 very quickly.
Okay.
Right. And I mean, I kind of like having some type of way to, maybe we can just put like, Tucson.com opinion. But I feel like it's good for when people read an editorial, like one, it should be like, it's the newspaper, right? You know what I mean? It's the opinion side of the newspaper talking, not just, because it wasn't just me. But I do want us to have like a way for the public to respond to an editorial directly. So I would like it, I want to have some email address, some
Oh, yeah, sure.
excuse me, sorry. But yes, but we are not trying to have, we are definitely want to maintain the editorial is a newspaper, not just me.
Okay, great.
And I think two other good identifications are when there's, let's say when Curt writes an article, which, he will and has, it's going to have like his photo with it. His photo will be like in print, like you see other writers, and then also digitally when you read that article, it would have, Curt's information. But sometimes on our internal system, like when you go to input like an article, whether Curt's writing it, whether I'm writing it, the editorial board, sometimes it autofills like trying to help us, like the byline and the author. And so sometimes we are human. And so sometimes that might, slip past us or something, which I think might have happened on that one.
Thanks.
But that's a great question, because there are things happen. Like, for example, I had someone thought that I fired David Fitzsimmons last week because they didn't see his cartoon. And so, like, obviously we have not. He's going to be here long after the world ends, but there's things happen and people kind of infer something. And so that's great. Like, I would like to have this be a forum for people to ask those questions so I can, clarify.
One year Fitz for April Fools, and he totally had me fooled. It's been quite a few years ago. He posted on Facebook that he was retiring and that his last day was going to be whatever day. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was like, what in the world? Like, I totally like fell for it, and other people did too. I was like, Fitz, you can't do that to us. Not allowed. So it looks like Robin has a question. You want to go ahead and unmute yourself there? There we go.
You may have partially answered this question, but how do you determine which national writers you put in the editorial pages?
Yeah. So this is part of these last couple of weeks is me getting to know a lot of these national writers. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find like a good mix. I'm looking for good arguments. I'm looking for people who are not like irate, the people are trying to make a good argument about something. And so I'm trying to get it where we have like many different views. Ideally, I would love to be able to have like theme days, and we would get all these different opinions about the same thing, whether it's climate change or whatever's in the news. To answer your question more specifically, is we also have like a handful of writers that we are like our go-to people, and that's left over from Sarah, and they seem to be really good. I like them. Is there anybody that you think that we should be including that we're not, or that we shouldn't be writing?
I've got a couple of guys. I'll send them to you in an email. But my other question was, are you making that sole determination, or are you getting opinions from other people on the Arizona Daily Star?
Oh no, it's me. Yeah, it's just me. We have like our syndication, and I'm just going through and choosing the ones that I think are the best, the most appropriate, the good mix. There's nobody else involved in the decision. It's just me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's see. Kathy Donahue, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
I guess I do have a question sometimes about the letters. And I know that if people write letters and express opinions, that they're supposed to document them if it's documentable, in the notes below. But I do sometimes wonder about, like, there was a letter recently and I would have written, but we have the 30-day rule. And so fortunately somebody else rebutted it. But I wonder how you decide on a letter where the internal reasoning of the letter is flawed.
Mhm.
So, you know, somebody wrote and said, it was about the hospitals and who would be admitted to hospitals. And it had to, you know, so they said, well, obviously in response to somebody saying that people who weren't vaccinated should not be admitted to hospitals. But
Mhm.
so what he then compared it to were, he compared it to gluttony, smoking, avoiding exercise, poor driving, excessive alcohol consumption. Those bad behaviors, should those be eliminated?
Mhm.
Well, to me, the two, I mean, that's apples and oranges. That's just, the internal reasoning is off, you know. So I wonder why, and somebody rebutted it, and they did it exactly as I would have. One behavior is bad for the individual, and the other one is potentially dangerous for everybody.
Right.
Everybody is so. Why do you publish?
Why run that letter?
Why run that letter? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's so, to me, that what struck me about that letter is I have the same, reaction, right? One's an infectious disease and one is your own personal thing going on.
Yeah.
And it just struck me as I had not heard that opinion,
Really?
about like vaccinations. That's a whole big conversation, has a million facets to it. I hadn't heard anybody really talking about that. I don't agree with it, but I can see like the reasoning is a little bit off there, but it just struck me as a new little bit in the conversation. I did have a little bit of a reaction that it was, I don't know, maybe a little bit mean, maybe a little bit callous, maybe is the better word. But the reason I chose to include it was that it was like a new bit in the conversation. I didn't see it crossing any lines, so I put it in.
May I make one other comment about, there was recently a letter. Yeah, well, I like your idea potentially of something themed. So if somebody writes one, if it was an opinion piece and is a strong opinion, that there then could be another one. And there was an article by Horton about natural and acquired immunity, that given all the controversy about vaccination, it seemed to me that required some kind of rebuttal. I mean, that I didn't think, I thought that was a piece of propaganda. So, and actually, I think I wrote to you. I didn't write a letter, but I'm harboring my ability to write letters to the one a month. But anyway, but as I said, that to me seemed like propaganda, an anti-vaccination piece is what I would call it. So.
Yeah. I didn't read it that way, but I could see there's an argument to be made. To me, it was you're using two examples of things that are not necessarily me being like, oh, the world has to look at the world and look at things this way. But they were like, I just hadn't really like heard that part of the conversation. So about the natural immunity, that's interesting. That's I don't know like the reality of that of the natural.
I think it's just a talking point in it goes along with and I lost the NFL player who said he's immunized, and it's all
Aaron Rodgers.
So it's part of that vocabulary. So there is a vocabulary that is, I think, is accepted and understood, that maybe those of us who don't follow that don't always know. So anyway, that was my thinking on those two things.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
I just wanted to interject too, Curt, if that's okay. With the letters to the editor, I always appreciate when you guys help us do our job, where you're kind of trying to just do, maybe one a month and spread it out. But, we do move a lot of letters online. So we have some letter writers that write quite often. And so, we try to pick out, a handful that we print, but then we also move a lot of letters online. So like in this particular example, Kathy, there's other rebuttals. Like sometimes we're not going to have like an entire day of letters that's like rebutting that, that one letter.
Right.
We don't want our other letter writers to feel beat up on, kind of thing. But we might run those online as well. And so please always feel free, if you want to submit that, that letter may not go in print, but it could go online.
Mhm.
Let's see. Kathy Scott, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, I like to give a suggestion for writing. Sarah Gosson had a very long running and extensive campaign to create high quality schools in your area. But now President Biden has that as a major part of his Build Back America or Build America Better or whatever the term is now. I'd like to see an article maybe honoring Sarah and saying, it was years long, 2-3 years that she has been advocating for this. And now it's part of a national trend. And whether the Star is supportive of, I don't think you have to support everything in the plan. I mean, you may or may not support parent leave or the other parts, but that particular little piece was a Star platform. I mean, you had letters in the editors, you had articles, you had editorials. And so when you ask for a suggestion for an editorial, that's mine.
I like that. I also want to note that in the city of Tucson declared, I think it was like September 23rd or something like that is Sarah Gasson Day. Yeah, because specifically for all the work she did with the young education. But that's interesting. Yeah, and to have the linking that with the Build Back Better plan, that would be something to dive into. That could be interesting if what we did out here did get some type of national attention and maybe that helped get it picked up into the bill. That would be interesting.
Let's see, Mark Sawyer has some comments in the chat about the Facebook page. Mark, are you able to unmute yourself and kind of share what your concerns were on that?
I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I used to participate there, and you could comment on the Star's Facebook page about that day's stories, and there were.
Oh, I think you cut out, Mark. Are you still connected?
400 or 500 responses. Today, if you look at the page, there are, maybe every 10th or 20th story will have 2 or 3 comments because right-wing trolls went through and deleted the accounts of everybody who argued with them. And the Star knows it's happened. Tim Steller even did an article about a month ago naming who the trolls were. They're very well known. They're not shy about who they are. But considering that they're deleting people's accounts, they're really harassing people. I've had my home vandalized 3 times because of them. Should the Star keep having a Facebook page that's dominated by right-wing trolls who are harassing their readers? And by the way, I talked with Jill Jordan Spitz about this, and she said that the Lee newspapers are having this problem at a lot of their newspapers, especially in Tulsa. It's worse than in Tucson. And what do you do about this? Do you just let people go on being harassed? Do you warn them about what's going on? Do you shut down the Facebook page completely?
That's a very good question. I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know if anybody has a good answer for that. That's quite a problem. And you bringing up the Facebook pages, that's one of the things that I would like to start doing more. The Star Opinion, we have a Facebook page that we haven't really used that much. But again, I don't want to create a forum online for a lot of hateful talk.
It's already that.
Yeah.
It has been for over a year.
Yeah. And it's like I think from the news organization perspective is, you create these like social media, accounts, and you're going to be posting a lot of stories on there, and everybody in the world can comment on them. And then it becomes another job to police the comments on every single post, every single story that you post online. It becomes a huge chunk of work.
It's not really work now because nobody's allowed to comment. Only the right-wing trolls comment. Anybody argues with them, they delete their account. And they've deleted hundreds of accounts and bragged about it.
That's terrible.
And it's going on right now.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up. That's a real problem. I do not have a good answer for you on that. But I will look into this and see if there's something that we can do. But for now, that's tough. That's a bad situation.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you acknowledge it's a bad situation. Everybody says it's a bad situation, but nobody will do anything about it.
Yeah, I don't even know.
It's been going on for over a year.
Yeah, I wonder about like it being Facebook and not our own website. I bet you I can just see how many people you would have to contact and to get Facebook.
You can't contact Facebook.
I'm sorry?
You cannot contact Facebook.
Yes. So
there is no way.
Yeah.
You can ask Jill, you can ask Tim. They tried.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think that's the problem you face is, okay, so do you completely shut off messages completely, but then you're limiting, free speech and, discussion on a subject, but it is a tough subject because if they're breaching, security and deleting these people, it becomes a platform issue that is kind of out of our control, but it's still frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder how much it's free speech when only one small group of people on one side is allowed to participate.
Yeah, and if they're canceling other people's accounts, that's beyond like a speech issue, really. I mean, they're depriving somebody else of being able to.
Oh, they go far beyond that. They create fake accounts in other people's names. They created fake accounts in my name and posted pedophilic stuff and really sexist stuff. They posted racist comments and then posted those around the internet. And that all came out of me arguing with them on the Star's Facebook page because I didn't like Donald Trump and they did.
Yeah.
Well, in a couple weeks, we have a woman joining us as a special guest talking about cybersecurity. So a lot of this is like, I don't know about you, Curt, but it is beyond me. It's on a whole other level, of how people figure out how to do this. But, I wonder if we might be able to talk to her about some of the personal things that we can do to protect ourselves. Maybe there's some small suggestions she might have. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. That could be fruitful.
All right, let's see. Lisa Smith asks, how long does it take typically to respond to people who submit guest opinions?
How long does it take to respond?
Yeah, so I think oh, there we go. I see your hand, Sally.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was asking that question.
Lisa Smith, okay.
Because I submitted one about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I haven't heard back.
What did you write about?
It was me and a group of people. We wrote about the 5G cell towers.
Oh, I think that just like slipped through. And that could very much be my fault that I just didn't catch it.
Okay, well, maybe we'll send it again. We put it in through the portal.
All right, you were writing about the 5G cell towers?
Yeah.
Just as a note to anyone submitting either a letter to the editor or an opinion piece, because we'll get an email every once in a while or someone saying like, did you receive the letter? If you don't receive that automatic reply, just that really general email that says, thank you for submitting your opinion piece or your letter. If you don't receive that, we didn't receive your submission.
I didn't receive that.
Yeah, and a couple tips on that. Our system, especially for an opinion piece, it is very fussy. So when it says it needs to be this amount of words or this amount of words, if it's not in between that, it's not going to accept it. It has to fall within those. So a couple tips when you're trying, if you don't get that automatic email, go back in and try to resubmit. It could be your word count. And because if you don't receive that, we didn't receive your submission.
Okay. I'll try again. We got the word count, one word underneath the maximum word count.
You should be good then.
I'll try again, or maybe just send a direct email to you, Curt.
Yeah, but please try again with the submission form first. If you
Okay.
immediately get the message back, yeah, email me.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's see, Sarah or Sally, I'm sorry.
Okay, Sally?
Yes, Sally, go ahead.
My question is, like the syndicated national columnists that you get, I'm wondering, does it cost the paper a lot of money to run their columns or something? I'm wondering if it does, because it seems like we are having much fewer of the really top-notch people, like maybe say Leonard Pitts on one side of an issue and someone like George Will on another side, and yet as far as the right-leaning people, we get an awful lot of Jonah Goldberg. We got him again today, and so I'm just wondering why, instead of seeing things about maybe that are well, I would even say a little whiny about some maybe smaller newspapers. I would love to see people, for example, I don't agree much with George Will, but he does write beautifully and writes very well thought out pieces. And I'd like to see more of these people.
All right. So I'm glad you bring that up. You mentioned George Will. Do you have anybody else that you would like to be seeing? We have him, right?
Well, like I said, Leonard Pitts, kind of on the other side. Oh dear. I can't think of any other people you have, maybe from the Washington Post or from the Times, but some of those people.
Well, if someone occurs to you, please email me with who you'd like to see. I would love to have a better sense of.
Okay, just send it to your email.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
And I'll add Kurt's email in the chat so you guys will have it handy here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty, and I think Kent had his hand up next.
Yeah, I have two questions. One associated with Mark's comments about accounts being eliminated. What accounts are you referring to? That's the first question. The second is to Curt. You said that you like to put several letters on the same topic. And I was wondering, do you save up? I mean, on any given day, you might get letters on like A, B, and C, but and then the next day you get letters on A, B, and C topics. Do you save up the A's and then print all those at one time? Or how long do you gather before you have enough for a topic?
Well, so with the letters, I think, Sarah, you know this is better than I do, but it does seem like the letters are coming in reacting to things in the news or events, local events or things like that, and we're running them more or less as they come in. With the opinions is really what I'm interested in. Like we had one example with Prop 206, the minimum wage increase. I was very excited that we had a guy wrote this piece that was saying that, and he was citing from the proposition all throughout. We went back and forth on the fact check for a while, talking about this would be a burden to businesses, would open the doors to, you know, a lot of different stuff. And then we had a person who was saying this minimum wage increase is going to really help me out. It's really hard to live on, you know, $12 an hour. And I was just so like, I want to have that all the time, like two kind of like opposing, or it doesn't have to be opposing, but different takes on the same thing on the same page. And I would love, I would love to open up a paper and have it be, you know, a bunch of local people with good arguments about the same thing. I would walk away like with a lot to think about. So in that sense, if I do have something that is people are writing opinions about, I am going to try, if space permitting and everything, to create these like theme days. But for the most, I have this other goal is I'm trying to get at least one local opinion in every edition. So that doesn't allow me to like really save up for to have a big day. But I'm hoping in time, I'll have a lot of local opinions. I will be able to like save them up a little bit and have like a good Sunday edition about, you know, one topic with all these local views on it. So that's what I would say.
What about the canceled, what were they, canceled accounts?
Oh, on Facebook?
Yeah, I think it's what you're saying.
What it was referring to.
Yeah, so that's what Mark brought up about there are trolls online that are canceling the accounts of people who post contradictory opinions on Facebook for like the Stars Facebook page. And that's complicated. That's very difficult.
Thanks for the clarification.
And I think too, in answer, Kent, about letters, like, let's, you know, like, just as an example, because it came up, like, when like Prop 206 and, you know, when those were coming up, like, that's a subject that's time sensitive, because it's like, okay, we have a vote on this date that's happening. So like, when we know something like that is coming up, one, we know people are going to write about it, and there's going to be all sorts of opinions. So a lot of times when that happens, like, I will go in and I search for that. Like, normally I try to grab things as they come in, but we'll go and we'll search. I'll do a search that's going to grab out anything that says prop this or Ward 3 or, you know, whatever it is that's coming up, because that needs to go in. That does need priority, because we want people to get their opinions on who they think should be in what ward and what their opinion is for, you know, this proposition. So those we'll handpick, but the rest of them is just like Curt said, the subjects that people are writing about are usually pretty similar. And so we usually get in a lot about one particular subject that just came out in the news, or, you know, some vote that just happened. They just kind of come in clusters.
Well, just in addition, about how many letters a week do you tend to have to go through? Or how many come into you that you have to sort?
We get letters to the editor as a catch-all for the paper. So when we come in and we look at letters to the editor, people send a message there about, I didn't get my paper on Sunday and circulation. So, okay, that's fine. You know, I mean, we want anybody to contact us. You know, if it's not my department, whatever, we want to try to help you. So that letter I export and I send to circulation. Or somebody says, you know, I saw something wrong in the sentence structure of this article. Okay, that's not necessarily a letter to the editor, but I'm going to let the editor or the writer know about that. So I forward that off. And then we get, you know, the random, you know, letters to the editor that's just one word, anarchy, or, you know, who knows what. So that's not a letter, you know. So you got to go through and you clean all of that out. And then the next thing I do, we have some of our letter writers that submit about 10 letters a day. Not exaggerating on that one. And so I'll go through, I'll see the last time that we printed a letter from them. If it's time for me to print another letter, I'll pick one out that has maybe the most impact of what they gave. And then I'll put as many of the rest of them that person has submitted online, because we do value you guys writing. We don't want that letter that you took time to write to, have go nowhere. But as long as it's factual and we can verify it. But, to give you an exact count, and we do try to go through all the letters, we try to clean them out by the week. So on Friday, we do letters through Monday. And so by Friday, we try to clean out everything that's there. It's either been put online, or if it's not factual, or it's so heavy of statistics and percentages and facts, and they provided nothing to help us verify it, it's do not print. So usually everything we try to process, and then come Monday morning, I'll usually have about maybe 60 to 70 from over the weekend. And then they just kind of come in daily. Do you kind of think those numbers are about fair, Curt?
That sounds right. Yeah.
I'm never really great when people are like, give me a number. I'm like,
And I would add to that I have not seen stats on this, from what I've been told is we have a pretty good letters to the editor community in Southern Arizona. There are papers elsewhere in the country that they just don't really even get letters. So we definitely want to foster that, and very much appreciate people sending in the letters. And I think we should all feel kind of lucky that we live in a place where people do that.
Well, and I think too, we've talked about, Curt, in our meetings, is encouraging people, a letter to the editor doesn't always have to be this heavy political subject. The letters to the editor it's our community. It's what's happening, what's on your mind? What are your thoughts? Are you appreciative of something, a good deed that somebody did? That's okay. That can be a letter to the editor. And I think all of us, when we get those, we're like, that was so great to read. That made my day. I know it does me, because I'm like, wow, we got a happy, positive letter. So, I mean, please, it doesn't have to be this heavy subject. It can just be about something going on. We've got a letter, I can't remember if it's tomorrow, or, she was excited about, the group that's going to play at the Rose Bowl. And there's this other group that's, going to be performing at the Macy's Day Parade locally. That's neat to hear. It's a letter to the editor.
And we had one the other day that was thanking the staff at Davis Monthan for doing a great job coordinating the parking and having shade and all that. And I have to imagine that the people who did that probably, liked getting a thank you for, feeling like they did a good job. That's great.
Yeah. And isn't that something we would talk about with our friends, hey, I just went to a concert at the Rialto, first time since COVID. And you know what? It was so put together and it was great. And this, that, and the, that's a letter. It's talking about something in the Tucson community, and a fellow Tucsonan might be interested in reading that. Let's see, we've got some more questions in the chat for you.
And we have Dee Maitland that has had her hand up for a while.
Yeah, go ahead.
Curt, thank you for doing this. And thank you for your help when I wrote my piece. One thing I'd like to see just once in a while for those of us who've been getting the paper for 15 years is an update on Marilyn Hines. I always loved her wisdom, and just like to know if she's okay once in a while.
Okay.
The other thing, and we sort of got started on it, was the issue of whataboutism and the not being equivalent. And next year we'll be going into an election, and I really worry about the giving equal time or equal voice when the two sides are not the same. They're whataboutism or apples and oranges or something. Have you given that thought about how we're going to, I don't know, print things that I understand are on an opinion instead of a fact base, but still are whatabouts that aren't related, or statements about evolution that are not true, but you're giving them equal time. That seems like a really complicated issue. And I know there's a general feeling that all news media failed in the 2016 election by giving equal time to things that weren't equal.
Mhm. Yes, so in terms of thinking about that, that is this enormous storm I see on the horizon. That it's going to get wild. I mean, if election season for the midterms hasn't started already, it's going to start soon. And then we're going to have a year of it. And as soon as that election is over, it's going to be the presidential election. You know, that's going to be a 2-year campaign, and it's going to be exhausting. So yeah, I think about that all the time. I think about that also, and particularly with local candidates. You know, if we definitely want to have the opinion pages be a place where people can talk about this. Like, that's kind of a fundamental reason to have opinion pages. But though, like, one of the few safeguards we have is for people who are like running for an office, who are asking the public to trust them and take them seriously. If they want to write something in the opinion pages, then they need to have documentation, they need to have attribution, sources for what they're saying. I do not want to stifle. I do not want to have this become a one-sided place where if you're not like extraordinarily liberal, then you're not welcome here. That would be terrible. So I want like conservatives and Republicans and libertarians, to be part of the conversation. I think, like, to give you an example, is Gosar's video this week was just like completely out of bounds. Like, that was horrible. Like, that doesn't have any place in the political conversation. So those types of things, like if Gosar were to, for whatever reason, want to run an op-ed on the Arizona Daily Star, it could get really complicated. If he wants to say something that's reasonable, okay, all right. But I don't want to have one side has this very intelligent, well thought out, empathetic, reason to rouse the public to take action of some sort, and then the other one is just vile. I don't personally believe that you just automatically get to have equal space. If you put in the work and you show you are like sincerely trying to have something adding something valuable to the conversation, then yeah, like I want you in there. I want you in the conversation. So this is just going to be really, really tough. And as you pointed out, the news media as a whole, we have very much struggled with this because it puts us in the position. The opinion page is a little bit different, right? Because we get to say like, no, but the reporting on when one side is being so disingenuous, and you just get used to, over the decades, you get used to, this is what the Democrat said, this is what the Republican said, and then now we're presenting it to the public. But it's gotten really wild and ugly, and so traditions have to change. My long-winded, not super definitive answer to you, but that's the best I have right now. I'm paying attention to it for sure.
But also, I think locally, like, let's say presenting both sides, whether it's a letter or an opinion piece, you can't print what we don't receive. And, whether we go out and we're soliciting from both sides, we still have to receive it. We can't make up words for people on either side. It has to come from them. And so if they're not getting it to us, we've got nothing. We can't share that opinion unless we get it.
And there's a comment here I'd like to talk about from Monica. The endorsements of local races. There's Monica. Yeah. This is something that I want to figure out how to do this best. I want to ask you all, there are a lot of local races that people don't pay attention to that much. I don't know if I've had the experience, of looking at the ballot and they want me to vote for a judge. I don't know who this person is, but they're one of a million candidates. I have to figure out who to vote for. Would you all be interested if we focused on the really low local elections, and like I could run like endorsements or give you my take on all these like small level candidates. Do you care about that?
You guys can either raise your hand or put stuff in the chat.
Yeah, looking at school boards.
Monica?
Yes, Kurt, thanks.
Yeah.
I do care about that. I want to make a note just because you just referred to endorsements and local races, but that my comment in the chat, if people haven't read it, is about an article in today's Washington Post about the truck driver in New Jersey who defeated one of the most powerful, or the most powerful legislator in the state. And those races were that race, and that's a local race, but it's a local race at a state representative level. So it's not even as remote as, let's say, the water zoning system board or something like that. But they've now, just today, they've uncovered the fact that this truck driver has quite an ugly background in terms of a misogynist, racist person. None of that was in the newspapers because there aren't any newspapers covering in that district the local news. And I want to use local news more broadly than just elections, because I think covering the city council, covering the county commission, these are all important things that where important things happen that we don't get to pay attention to. But coming back to answering your specific question, I would love to get a better take on the judges. That's one particular area where I sit, and I'm so glad that we can vote by mail, and I can go down and look up the judges and read something about them. There is one resource I use that recommends judges that I am likely to want to see supported. But it's a lot of those local races are where people get started with, and build onto having won that local race to move up higher and higher. And eventually they're on school boards, on county commissions, running for the state legislature, or perhaps running for governor. So I do appreciate, and I think we've had good quality from the Arizona Star covering local news, but it can always be better. So I'm glad we have you, and I'd love to see more of it.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot of candidates for the local. There's a lot of local elections, a lot of candidates for each one of them. But I think I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to try to get a bead on all of these candidates and at least have some little bit of info for people to use. I did the state legislature races, and it just takes so much time, and there's so many candidates. But I felt good putting out, a good chunk of information about each candidate and letting them talk a little bit so you get a sense of them. So what I'm talking about for the opinion pages would be, I would have to go in and sit down with them and give you my take of the conversation I had with them and their voting record and all that. But I'm gonna pursue this. I'm gonna try and get this done, like all these local races. And it looks like judges, and somebody brought up the school boards.
I will also copy this whole chat to you after the meeting, Kurt. That way we don't overlook any of these comments about.
Oh, that'd be great. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want everyone to know we're not going to ignore them, but we don't have time to hit them all in the chat. But Kurt will get them. Yeah.
And this is an interesting point Kathy Scott brought up, that one school district doesn't affect as many people as the bigger school districts.
Yeah.
So I got to prioritize. But it's almost like, I don't like the idea of politicians getting to run races that are under the radar and they just win without having any scrutiny. That doesn't seem wise.
There is a group that gives the judges a rating, and I just skips my mind right now, but that can give you a help on the judges. Because I know in the last election, they had failed one of the judges, but they're all just on there together. The rating's not on the ballot. And so she got reelected anyway, even though, this group. So you can look for it, or I'll try to remember what the name of the group is that rates judges. on a whole bunch of issues.
Okay, that would be great. Let's see.
And let's see, Kent, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I take the judge issue very seriously. And so I analyzed the percent of support from, I think, like 3 different sources. One is from the professional organization. One's from individuals who have interacted personally. And I forget what the third is. I think there were 3 different sources. And yeah, I put them into categories. If anyone is getting like 80% approval, and let's say, I think 80% is my cutoff. Anyone who's getting less than 80%, I won't vote to approve. I don't know whether it would be appropriate to bring to people's attention the judges who have scored poorly in those categories. It's the facts are there, but you do have to look them over and categorize. So most of the judges get very high approvals. So it's really a relatively small group that are sort of dubious whether they ought to be reelected. And there are facts to share. I thought.
That's great. Thank you. I'm going to look that up.
And I think we have time for Kathy Donahue.
I'm not, this isn't quite in line with the, this isn't in line, well, maybe with the local elections, but I was thinking it would be interesting every once in a while to have something that, for some reason, the term explainer has popped into my head. I don't know where it's from, someplace, but that there are sort of hobby horses. There are things that become cause celebs, like critical race theory, defund the police, things that get to be dead horses that then are beaten to death. And a lot of times people don't, certainly critical race theory might be something that is getting thrown around in these local school boards, but people don't know what it is. And it's rare that is well explained, that or where it comes from, or, is there. And so it sometimes seems like rather than wait for an opinion piece to talk about it, that there could be, if an objective small piece could be written that just says, this is what this is. It started off as a bumper sticker, like well, I don't know whether defund the police started off as a bumper sticker, but that got to be really extraordinarily hard to refute, where people, I don't want to defund the police. I would like to reform the police. But it became a mantra that was really difficult to refute, but was used, I think, probably used here, probably it's used in a lot of places across the country. And I think people are just confused about what they are, what's going on. Is it a problem here? I don't know, but those are the 2 things that popped into my head.
Yeah, and the term explainer is used in the news industry as if for things where it's just like we're all talking about this, but no, break it down,
Yeah,
for sure. And in terms of the like critical race theory, defund the police or something, things like that, there could be a place for that in the opinion pages. That is one of these things that unless it becomes something local happens, then the news side might, put together an explainer.
Yeah.
But when they're just like national issues like that, I don't know. Maybe we can the AP will do it and we could run it at least online. Yeah, that's an interesting idea, and it does kind of like fall in between the stools a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
All righty, that kind of winds down our time. So Anything else you want to put out there, Curt?
No, but thank you so much for showing up and, for showing up so many times. That's really, really great. And yeah, if you feel that you have that itch that you want to write an opinion piece or something, please don't hesitate. Email me. You can email me at like, hey, I kind of want to write about this thing. And I can kind of help you form the idea if it's not totally set in your head. If you have it, you are just boom, ready to go. That's even better. And we can just do the little final editing. But I would just want to say, I very much welcome that type of interaction. So if you want to, start writing guest opinions, please don't hesitate to do it.
Thanks a lot. This was a good session. Thank you.
So next week, we actually have some other really cool guests. We have Greg Hansen and Ryan Finley. I'm sure many of you are familiar with who they are, but if not, Ryan Finley is the editor of our sports pages, and the one and only great Greg Hansen is the sports columnist. So they'll be here next week chatting with Curt all about sports. Because it's a foreign language to me. So bring your sports questions, but they're both just super great to chat with. And then we'll let you know again. We'll hope next month to have another chat with just Curt.
Yeah, this seems pretty worthwhile. So I hope we do it again.
Just Curt.
Yeah.
Just Curt. We'll call it that. All right. Well, thank you guys all for joining us today, and we hope that you can join us again next week and have a great rest of your day.